Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together, please. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Sarva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest. One should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta praishvabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. And that's it? Okay. All right, but this morning we're starting chapter 15 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. What was chapter 13?
Stealing of the cows.
Chapter 14?
Prayers of
Okay, good. So now we're getting into killing. Now the killing begins. Or it resumes, I should say. The Gasu are already. Putana. Chanavarta. Yes, Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj were very concerned by the time their son was 5 years old. He was already a convicted thief and murderer. They're concerned about his character development. So this is 16 verses we have to read to start today. So what I'd like to do is ask everyone to, let's read ladies' side, men's side, read a verse, and then go on to the next. Is that all right? Okay. We have a microphone? Or no, we just read them all? Okay. Okay. So please speak loudly.
It's fine. Sukadeva Goswami said, when Lord Rama and Lord Krishna attained the age of Poganda, 6 to 10, while living in Vrindavan, the cowherd men allowed them to take up the task of tending the cows. Engaging thus in the company of their friends, the two boys rendered the land of Vrindavan most auspicious by imprinting upon their mass of their lotus feet.
Thus, desiring to enjoy pastimes, Lord Madhava sounding his flute, surrounded by cowherd boys, who were chanting his glories and accompanied by Lord Baladev, kept the cows before him and entered the Vrindavan forest, which was full of flowers and rich with nourishment for animals.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead looked over that forest, which resounded with the charming sounds of bees, animals, and birds, and which was enhanced by a lake whose clear water resembled the minds of great souls, and by a breeze carrying the fragrance of 100-petaled lotuses. Seeing all this, Lord Krishna decided to enjoy the auspicious atmosphere.
The primal lords saw that these stately trees, with their beautiful reddish birds and their heavy burden of fruits and flowers, were bending down to touch his feet with the tips of their branches. Thus, he smiled gently and addressed his elder brother.
This is such a nice section where Lord Krishna is glorifying Lord Ram.
Text 5. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O greatest of Lords, just see how these trees are bowing their heads at your lotus feet, which are worshipable by the immortal demigods. The trees are offering you their fruits and flowers to eradicate the dark ignorance that has cursed their earth history.
O
original personality, these beings must be great saints and most elevated devotees of yours. For they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Though you have disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you, their worshipable Lord.
O worshipable one, these peacocks are dancing before you out of joy. These doves are pleasing you with affectionate glances, just as the gopis do, and these cuckoos are honoring you with very prayers. All these residents of the forest are most fortunate, and their behavior toward you certainly befits great souls, receiving another great soul at home.
Text 8. This earth has now become most fortunate, because you have touched her grass and bushes with your feet, and her trees and creepers with your fingernails. And because you have graced her rivers, mountains, birds, and animals with your merciful glances. But above all, you have embraced the young cowherd woman between your two arms, a favor hankered after by the goddess of fortune herself.
It's 9. Sukadeva Goswami said, thus expressing his satisfaction with the beautiful forest of Vrindavana and its inhabitants, Lord Krishna enjoyed tending the cows and other animals with his friends on the banks of the river Yamuna below Govardhan.
Text 10 and 12. Sometimes the honeybees in Vrindavan became so mad with ecstasy that they closed their eyes and began to sing. Lord Krishna, moving along the forest path with his cowherd boyfriends and Baladev, would then respond to the bees by imitating their singing while his friends sang about his pastimes. Sometimes Lord Krishna would imitate the chattering of a parrot, sometimes with a sweet voice the call of a cuckoo, and sometimes the cooing of swans. Sometimes he vigorously imitated the dancing of a peacock, making his cowherd boyfriends laugh. Sometimes with a voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds, he would call out with great affection the names of the animals who had wandered far away from the herd, thus enchanting the cows and the cowherd.
In this purport, thank you. Hare Krishna. It's mentioned, Srila Sanatana Goswami explains that Lord Krishna would joke with his friends, saying, just look, this peacock does not know how to dance properly. Whereupon the Lord would vigorously imitate the peacock's dancing, causing great laughter among his friends. Okay, next.
Sometimes you cry out in imitation of birds, such as the chakoras, ronchas, chakrahavas, darvajas, and peacocks. Sometimes you would run away from the smaller animals in mock fear of lions and tigers.
Text 14. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head upon the lap of the cowherd boys, Lord Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services.
Sometimes as the cowherd boys danced, sang, moved about, and playfully fought with each other, Krishna and Balaram, standing nearby, hand in hand, would glorify their friends' activities and laugh.
Sometimes Lord Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of the tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds, and using the lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow.
Sorry, we are reading 3 more.
3 more, okay, go ahead, then, please.
Some of the cowherd boys who were very slow, golden message is let us feel and other qualities by very free of our single expertly find the supreme Lord.
My dear king, other boys would sing and chanting songs appropriate to occasion, and their hearts would melt out of love for the Lord.
Text 19. In this way, the Supreme Lord, whose soft lotus feet are personally tended by the goddess of fortune, conceived his transcendental opulences by his internal potency and acted like the son of cowherd. Yet, even while enjoying like a village boy in the company of the village residents, he often exhibited feats only God could perform.
Okay.
Only
I'm not going to use that, so maybe he can read last one.
No, that's right. Everybody he doesn't read so well. I can read the purport. How about that? All right. So let's do text 6. Shall we?
6.
Did you have one selected? Or?
No,
Yeah, let's do text 6 then. Ete linastava yasho kila loka tirtam. Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante. Prayo ami munigana bhavatiya mukya. Gudham bane pinajat jahatyanughatma daivam. Gudam vane pina jahatyanugata daivam. Ete linastava yasho kila loka tirtam. Gayanta ade purushanupatam bhajante. Prayo ami munigana bhavatiya mukya. Gudham vane pina jahatyanughatma daivam. Okay.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Rayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Rayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Gudam vane pina jahate anaghatma devam.
Gudam vane pina jahate anaghatma devam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Dayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Rayo ami muni gana bhavadiya mukhya.
Rayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Gudam vani pina jahatyanaghatma devam.
Gudam vane pina jahatyanaghatma devam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Prayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Rayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Gudam vani pina jahate anaghatam davimam.
Gudam vane pina jahatyanaghatma devam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Rayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Rayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Gudam vane pina jahatyanughatma daivam.
Gudam vane pina jahatyanaghatma devam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Ete linastava yasho kila lokatirtam.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Gayanta adi purushanupatam bhajante.
Rayo ami munigana bhavadiya mukhya.
Gudam vane pina jahatyanughatma daivam.
Gudam vane
I deliberately picked the hardest verse for everyone to choose. Before we go on, do you recognize? No, before you go on. Do you recognize any any words here? Yasho? Fame, yes, like Yashoda, one whose fame is increasing. How about Tirtham? Holy place, yes. Gayanta? Singing. Adi Purusha? The original person. Bhajante? Worshipping. Muni? Mukhya? From the mouth. How about Gudham? Secret, yes. Good. Okay, so now let's say them all together. Ete, these, Avina, bees, Tava, your, Yasha, glories.
Akila Loka, for all words. Tirtham, the place of pilgrimage. Gayanta, chanting. Adi Purusha, original personality of Godhead. Anupadham, following you along the path. Bhajante, the application worshipping. Praya, for the most part. Ami, these. Munigana, great sages. Bhavadiya, among your devotees. Mukhya, the most intimate. Gudam, hidden. Vanani, within the forest. Api, even though. Najanati, they do not abandon. Ananda, merciless one. Atmadeva, their own worshipability.
Okay, and translation together, please.
O original personality, these beings must all be great sages and most elevated devotees of yours. For they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Though you have disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you, their worshipful Lord.
Okay. So this is Lord Krishna again glorifying Lord Balaram. All these bees were following Lord Balaram, and he's saying they must have been great sages, for they continued to worship you. So let's start the purport, if you would. Narada Muni Prabhu.
The word Gudam is significant in this verse. It indicates that although the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form of Krishna or Balaram appears like an ordinary human being within the material world, great sages always recognize the Lord as the supreme absolute truth. All the transcendental forms of Godhead are eternal and full of bliss and knowledge, exactly the opposite of our material bodies, which are temporary and full of misery and ignorance.
All right, let's stop there for a moment. So Gudam, hidden, means that Krishna and Balaram were perceived as the ordinary cowherd boys, like the others in the village, by their parents, by their friends, and they wanted that. There was an occasion when, after killing Kamsa in Mathura, later, Krishna's pastimes, but still as a young boy, he immediately went to release his mother and father who had been in prison. And so when he came in, his beloved parents, who had not seen him since the day he was born, immediately wanted to embrace him. But while they were in jail, they had been hearing about all the things that Krishna had done in Mathura. He killed Kuvala Yapida, the big elephant. He broke the bow in the sacrificial arena. Then he killed the wrestlers, Chanura and Mushika, Krishna and Balaram. And then he killed Kamsa. So they were hearing all this like live feed. And so when he came in the jail cell, they couldn't bear to embrace him because they realized his divinity. And so they could only offer their obeisances. Now, sometimes we think that offering obeisances is pleasing to people. And it's expressing, it is glorifying, expressing humility. But sometimes, like Krishna did not like that. He didn't want his parents to be worshiping him. Who wants parents who worship you? That just spoils you, right? Of course, when you're a baby, then the parents worship you. And you're taking it all in. But at some point, you just want to have a more friendly relationship or a more appropriate relationship with your mother and father. So that was exactly how Krishna felt. He did not like the awe and reverence that his parents were feeling towards him. So he began speaking in a certain way, just to invoke their parental affection. He said, "Oh, my dear mother and father, if only we could have been with you all these years. Our foster parents were very nice to us, Nanda and Yashoda, but nobody can replace the love of the birth parents." And so in this way he began speaking to them, and their mood immediately changed back into maternal and paternal love, parental love. So Krishna does not like to be recognized as in these awe and venerated ways, awesome and venerated ways. He loves to be seen as a friend or as a child or as a lover. These are the higher relationships with Krishna that are just unfathomable to people in contemporary religious or spiritual studies. Huh? In general, there's two relationships with God that are going on. One is awe and reverence. It's like kind of, the slot machine. Here's my prayer, and maybe I'll get it. My friend Akendra has a song. He goes, "Om, give me this, Om, give me that, and the other thing too while you're at it. Deliver it overnight if you please. I'm doing my part here on my knees." So everybody is asking Krishna for benedictions. That's the first entry level of God consciousness. And then one step up from that is what? It's the next rasa after Shanta. Dasya rasa, yes. Dasya, which means? Service, right. So serving God is where we begin to have a little separation. We could say from contemporary religious traditions. Now, people talk about serving God in a way that generally means social welfare work, isn't it? That's the general idea. In Gainesville, at the University of Florida, I used to belong to a chaplains group from different churches around campus. And so we would meet and talk about different issues, organize different programs. But one day, one week, all the chaplains were planning their annual food distribution program. They called it PB&J, Peanut Butter and Jesus. And they make bunches of sandwiches and pass them out to homeless people. And this was like a great expression of their service for God. This is our service for God. Mana seva, madhava seva. To serve man is to serve God. And, during the spring break one year, the different groups went out to do different social services. One group went to Haiti to help build houses. One group went to this place to help with social issues, feed people. And when it was my turn, well, our group, we all jumped in a van and drove to our temple in Houston and did a lot of chanting. And they could not correlate how improving the spiritual lives of our students could possibly be service to God. So this idea of serving God is more or less like foreign, because God is not understood in that way. It's generally one-way street. I bow and I beg, and I admire and I believe, and then the rest is up to God. So we're very fortunate in Bhakti. We get this direction from Krishna in the Gita. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta prayashtati. Just if one offers me with love a fruit, a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Now, this is such a comprehensive verse, right? Because if you have a beautiful plant, what do you get in the spring? No? What? Okay, before that, what is it? It's dormant, it's naked in the winter. Then what happens? What happens next? Leaves. Yeah, the leaves come out, right? I guess Maybe the climate is different up here. The leaves come out, and then in the summer, flowers. Yes, they flower in preparation for the fall, which brings fruits. And then again, the winter comes, everything falls off, but what is still available?
Branches.
Go out and melt some snow. Yes. No, we don't offer snow to Krishna, but we can offer water. You see? So any time of year, we can always offer something to Krishna, from leaf to water, depending on the season. So that's how ecumenical Krishna is, how easy he makes it. And in that verse he says, if it's offered with devotion, I will accept it. So this is the dasya rasa. This is the opportunity to have an exchange with Krishna. As we read in the 3rd chapter of the Gita also, that those who eat food which is offered up in sacrifice are progress in their spiritual life. But those who eat food which is not offered, verily eat only what? Sin, right. They're just eating karma. There's a restaurant in Gainesville called Karma Cream. It's just perfectly named. Unfortunately, devotees go there sometimes. So, this is dasyaras. That's beyond even the conception of most people these days. But then what to speak of being a friend with God? See? The sakyarasa, to be a friend. And then to be a what? A parent, and then? A lover. These things are generally beyond the scope. There are certain Christian mystics who write about developing these more intimate relationships with God. So it's not entirely foreign. And I think in the Sufi tradition in Islam, there's also some references to these higher rasas. But by and large, people are just, they can't relate to this because they don't understand the personality of Godhead. So, okay. Any comments on this? Let's go ahead and finish that. Next paragraph, please.
Someone like to read the next paragraph?
Anyone else like to read? Damayanti?
One meaning of the word tirtha is the means for crossing beyond material existence. Simply by hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord or by chanting them, one immediately comes to the spiritual platform beyond material existence. Thus the Lord's transcendental glories are here described as a tirtha for everyone in the world. The word Kalakantha indicates that great sages give up their vows of silence and other selfish processes to glorify the activities of the Supreme Lord. Real silence means to not speak nonsense, to limit one's verbal activities to those sounds, statements, and discussions relevant to the loving service of the Supreme Lord.
Thank you. Yes. This Mauna Vrata is a vow of silence. There was once a monastery where all the monks observed silence. They were only allowed to speak 2 words a year. So the new monk came in, observed his silence for a year. At the end of the year, he went to the rector and said, "Hard bed." Another year passed, and he went to the rector and he said, "Cold food." And finally another year passed. He went to the rector and said, "I quit." And the rector said, "Well, I'm not surprised. You've done nothing but complain since you've been here." So this vow of silence is artificial because we have a propensity to speak, right? We have a propensity to glorify or to enjoy or to exchange. How do you exchange friendship without words? It's very difficult, you know? I had a godbrother who had this ironclad rule: he would not talk during prasadam. And I didn't know it. I sat by him and said, "So how are you, Prabhu?" And all the people, the others around him who knew his vow, they looked at me like, uh-oh. So it's artificial. Although prasadam discussion is supposed to be light, not difficult topics over prasadam. But the point is that the devotees always get pleasure in talking. Bodhyanta parasparam katayatas jamam nityam tushyanti chadaramanti chad. The thoughts of my pure devotees, Krishna said, dwell in me, their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great bliss and satisfaction conversing among one another and talking about me. It's a source of joy, because words that are spoken to glorify Krishna are better than silence. The problem with speaking, of course, is we speak all kinds of nonsense. Prabhupada talked about the frog. In my home in Florida, we have a little farmlet, a few acres, and then in the back there's a little swamp. So it's the frogs have this miraculous ability. My godbrother once told me, yes, everyone has their ability, every living animal. You can write poetry, and the frogs have this ability to stay dormant until it gets wet. So when it rains and the swamp fills up, all the frogs come out. You just like overnight, they go from 0 to 60 and they're so loud, so loud. So the Prabhupada said that the frog is silent. The frog is safe until it speaks. And when the frog begins speaking, then the snakes hear and they come and eat the frog. So this is the speech of the ordinary topics of this world. We're talking about them, but we're just setting ourselves up for more birth and death in this world. So if you hold your question, we'll take questions in just a moment. Yeah, please write them down. I want to finish off the purport here. Also, before we go on, there's one verse, a couple of verses in the first canto, I think the 5th chapter, the discussion between Narada Muni and Srila Vyasadeva. And does anyone remember which verses I'm referring to, talking about the difference between ordinary speech and speech about Krishna? Yeah.
I thought we were talking about the one which says, Narayana versus 1:17. Those words which glorify.
Yes. Go ahead.
Those words which glorify, which do not glorify the Supreme Lord are like a refuge, is like a dirty place.
Yes. For crows.
Do not go there. Yeah, only crows.
Only crows would go to the, yes. Whereas those words which glorify Krishna are
the swans go there.
they're compared to, yes, a beautiful lake where the swans gather, yes. And they will be, so those words will be spoken by purified men who are honest, yes. So the bees here are making these sounds and speaking in glorification of Lord Balaram. So, okay, last paragraph we'd like to read. Prabhuji.
The word anagha indicates that the Supreme Lord never performs sinful or offensive activities. The word also indicates that the Lord immediately excuses a sin or offense committed by a sincere loving devotee who may accidentally deviate from the Lord's service. In the specific context of this verse, the word anagha indicates that Lord Balaram was not disturbed by the bees who were constantly following him Anupadam. The Lord blessed them by saying, "O bees, come into my confidential grove and feel free to taste its fragrance."
Mm-hmm. Anyone here afraid of bees? Well, most bees will not bother you if you just leave them alone, isn't it? Unless you bother them. There's one species of bees that digs their nest in the ground, kind of a wasp. And if you happen to step on the entrance to their nest, they will attack you. That's only exception. But generally bees, they're very chill. They look scary, but you just leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. And these beasts were around Lord Balaram, and he was not at all concerned. And Krishna was inviting them, please, to follow them. This important point is made. The word indicates, anaga indicates the Lord immediately excuses a sin or offense committed by a sincere, loving devotee who may accidentally deviate. This is very important for our relations with others and our own self-acceptance, because nobody is perfect in this material world. And in the Gita, Krishna is very explicit that apichet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhat sadhareva samantavya. Even if somebody commits some mistake or does something that is abominable, if he resumes his position in devotional service, he must be considered saintly. So everyone is entitled to a mistake, even two. But Prabhupada said, three. So what causes mistakes? It's generally material attachments, isn't it? Because we have this inherent propensity to commit mistakes. And why do we commit mistakes? According to the four defects. What's the first defect of the conditioned soul? What's it? Imperfect senses. These are sequential. Yeah, we have imperfect senses, which everyone can agree. We can't see anything beyond this room. We can't hear anything beyond a certain decibel level. Imperfect senses lead to?
Assumption.
Yes, right, or illusion. Because our senses are imperfect, we get a misconception of reality, and then we make mistakes, yes. So illusion is the basis of mistakes. The first illusion is what? I am this body, right? And then everything else is, from that first misconception, everything else is like starting in a long equation, 1 + 1 = 3. Every conclusion after that will be wrong. So finally, after we commit mistakes, what do we still do? We present ourselves as perfect. This is the cheating propensity, right? So sometimes devotees are a little hard on themselves about mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It's just important to learn from the mistakes and not to repeat them. Okay. All right, any discussion now?
On the point of silence, I've heard before, like, for some of us that maybe have more materialistic families or something, you go home and your dad wants to talk to you about football. And I've heard before that it's not always like silence to not discuss with him. If you're like, oh dad, I want to talk about Vishnu now. It's like, that's like an immature understanding of silence, because building a relationship in service is...
Yes.
So I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that.
Definitely, yes. The devotees establish the principles of religion not by logic and debate, but by their behavior. So obviously, if you treated your father like that, he would think, my son is a brainwashed cult member. So we see that Srila Prabhupada could have very pleasant exchanges with people, very cordial. He was very amenable, very pleasant. He would meet them where they were at, and that endeared people to him. So he was very straightforward. But first, we're not in Prabhupada's position to start with, you know. So we might imitate by saying, "Oh, and I refuse to talk about anything but Krishna consciousness." Sorry. Yeah, and be oblivious to the consequences. There's these two words, anusaram and anucharam. Anusaram means, sara means what? The essence. So anusaram means to take the essence of proper behavior. Anucharam means to imitate. So there was a veterinarian who had an apprentice, and this veterinarian was a specialist in large animals. So he was called one day to a farm where there was a horse who was lying on his side in obvious distress, with this huge lump in the throat. And the veterinarian examined the animal, and then he told his apprentice, "Get me a hammer." So the apprentice brought a hammer, And the veterinarian struck the lump. And then he told the farmer, your horse will be fine tomorrow. And sure enough, the farmer said, yes, thank you very much. He recovered completely. We appreciate it. So the apprentice started thinking, that was easy. I could do that. And so he quit his apprentice and began his apprenticeship and began his own practice as a veterinarian. So soon the veterinarian started getting calls. What is this apprentice of yours doing? He's hurting my animals. And so the veterinarian calls, what are you doing? Well, I'm just doing what you did. I saw you hit that horse with the hammer, so I'm hitting the animals with a hammer. He said, you fool, that horse had swallowed a watermelon. So this is the difference between anusaram and anucharam. If we try to talk about Krishna with people who are not interested, that's which offense to the holy name? Yes. And what number is that in the hierarchy? Number 9. Ninth offense. So on the one hand, to just talk incessantly about Krishna to someone who's not interested, that doesn't cut it. And the other hand, to just refuse to have ordinary exchanges, that also doesn't cut it. So it has to be a little intelligent. How does our behavior impact the people we're with? And that way, we actually are observing silence. We're using our words. Right? Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, udara pasta vegam. The 6 pushings include vacho vegam, or the urge to speak about irrelevant things. And what's the worst kind of irrelevant speech to indulge in, especially for devotees? Prajalpa. Yes, prajalpa means like useless talk, just mundane talk. But even worse than that is what? Yes, to criticize devotees. And we have that propensity, right? Has anyone ever come to you and said, I'm not supposed to tell you this? Yeah? Or, don't tell anybody. Then you know this is probably blasphemy of a devotee coming up. So you actually stop right there. Oh, this is confidential? I'd rather not know. Okay. If we listen complicitly to criticism of devotees, if we maintain silence at that point, then we are complicit in the offense. So we have to say something positive about the person being criticized, or we have to leave. If someone's being criticized and we just sit there and listen, then we are also accepting. So we just say something nice, like, well, this person leads such a nice kirtan. Oh, I really appreciated the offering you cooked the other day. Or, that's funny, he was saying such nice things about you. That really bugs them. Okay, great. That's a very good point. Other questions on any of these subjects? Yes, your name is?
Gitanjali.
Gitanjali, hi.
There are a lot of people, those who make mistakes and then blame the situation. Why is it so? Like, if the things are done, the problem is in our senses and the materialistic desires, why do people end up blaming situations and others that this has happened because of them, or the situation was in this way that it made us to do that thing?
Yes, very, very common propensity, isn't it?
Yes.
So the devotee sees Krishna everywhere and in everything. One who sees me everywhere and everything in me, I'm never lost to him, or is he lost to me, right? So any situation that we are in has been created by Krishna. And we may have contributed to it by our own mistakes. And that's also part of our service to Krishna. To make mistakes is natural, to learn from them is the challenge. So to blame our circumstances is to fail to get the lesson that Krishna is trying to give us. Right? Sometimes we create unwanted circumstances for ourselves. Srila Prabhupada told a story about a man who was sawing a limb off a tree. Okay? But he was on the side of the limb away from the trunk. And he's sawing and sawing. And then a friend comes underneath and says, you know, if you keep sawing like that, you're going to fall. And he says, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. And then he finishes, he falls, and then he says to his friend, wow, you could see the future. So we're well advised to seek advice about decisions that we're going to make, so that we don't create an unwanted situation for ourselves. Devotees will therefore be fortunate to have mentors with whom they can sound out ideas or options. And there's so many options in our lives. See, life is nothing but a series of decisions. And we'd all love to be in a situation where we don't have to make any decision, but it doesn't exist in this world. We have to make decisions, and so when we're faced with a decision, this is the time to go to a mentor and say, I could do this or I could do that. Very often, both of them are good choices in spiritual life. I could go this route, I could go that route. And they're both conducive for our spiritual life. We just have to make a decision based on consequences beyond. So that's where mentors can be helpful. They have experience with this or with that. They can say, here are the pros and cons. Here are the pros and cons. But the decision ultimately rests with us. Sometimes people think that, oh, now I have a guru, I don't have to make any decisions anymore. My guru will tell me what to do. Gurudev, should I turn left or right? Should I eat the sabji first or the chapati? Or both together? Tell me, Gurudev. Yes, Prabhupada had a disciple who once said to him, Prabhupada, please tell me what to do for Krishna. And Prabhupada said, what do you want to do for Krishna? Whatever you say, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no, I asked you, what do you want to do for Krishna? He forced him to make a decision. So then that devotee thought, and he said, I'd like to make mridangas that don't break. They were so fragile in those days. And it was such a heartbreak to bring one back all the way from Mayapur and then, just like that, break, and it's ruined. So Prabhupada said, so do it. So he made the fiberglass mridangas that way. So the point is that we create our own circumstances. We should make our choices, therefore, with great care. And then having made them, not blame them. Take responsibility. Just one more thing in that regard. Back in the 70s, devotees used to get kidnapped by their parents because the parents were convinced that they were brainwashed. And they would literally be snatched off the street and thrown into vans and driven across state lines to safe houses where they would be tempted to break all of the regulator principles. And so these kidnappers had some bogus psychologists who said, yes, you were brainwashed. And sometimes these psychologists would even come to the safe houses and tell the devotees, you were tricked into making this decision to be a Hare Krishna. You were brainwashed, you were manipulated, you didn't make it of your own free will, and therefore you can quit it. So when this finally got to the courts just threw it out, people got sued. Why? Because the essence of psychology is to take responsibility for your own decisions. So for a psychologist to tell someone, oh, you weren't responsible, it's very irresponsible. All right, anything else? Let's start talking about.
Prabhu, you talked about, you gave the example of Prabhupada asking his disciples, what do you want to do for service to Krishna? I also know about stories where Prabhupada instructed, like, okay, in India also, okay, you go to this state. Prabhupada, I don't know anything, where you go.
Mm-hmm.
So, do Guru do both things? They instruct sometimes, or they tell you to follow your heart?
They do sometimes. Now, here's the difference. In those days, Srila Prabhupada was both the spiritual guide and the manager, because no one else could do either. But what did Prabhupada repeatedly ask his disciples to do? Please take over the management so that I can focus on my brahminical work of teaching and writing, right? So, yes, it's true, Srila Prabhupada would dispatch his disciples, no, you go here, you go here, you go here, when he was beginning the movement. And then when it gained some momentum, he wanted to turn that responsibility over to others. When he would get questions of management, he would refer them to the local authorities or GBC. And you just remind me of this beautiful story when Srila Prabhupada was starting the temple in Vrindavan. It had just opened. It was very difficult for the Westerners to manage there in India. Because believe it or not, some of the Indian businessmen were not very honest. I don't know if you've ever encountered such a thing, with the sterling reputation that Indian businessmen have. Right? Anyway, he was personally forced to make all the decisions and guide everything and get everything set up. And he had established one devotee as the temple president. He was a sannyasi, kind of a soft-spoken person, but a decent manager. So he was taking care of the management. Then this other sannyasi, new sannyasi, came into Vrindavan, and he was leading fired-up kirtans, and he was giving fired-up classes. And the devotees started thinking, oh, we'd rather have this person as our temple president. So then there's some dissension, some politics started brewing among the devotees. Prabhupada was not pleased, so he called both of the sannyasis in his room. And he said to the newly arrived sannyasi, why are you staying here in Vrindavan? Sannyasi means you're supposed to go out and preach. Why are you just staying here? You should be going out here or going out there. And then he turned to the other sannyasi and he said, and you stay here in Vrindavan and manage. So, yes. In general, now, in our Sangha, it is better to get managerial guidance from managers and spiritual guidance from our gurus. And that's by spiritual guidance we're talking about. Are we having difficulty chanting our rounds or difficulty following the regular principles? Or should we consider changing ashram? Spiritual questions of a personal nature, that's appropriate for our gurus. But if we say, Gurudev, should I go to Montreal or Ottawa or should I stay here in Toronto? That's not their business. See? For that we work with the local management. We say, I have this interest in going here, or I have this issue going on here, like that. So this parallel lines of authority, harmonizing the management and the spiritual mentorship. Okay. All right. Okay, do we have time? Who's in charge here? Everyone looks at Monil. Monil says, so can we go on a little longer?
Yes.
Okay, please. Aditi.
So Prabhupada's disciples were obviously very brave, surrendered, and they would go wherever he'd ask them to go. If a spiritual master does ask them to say, you live in the States, but I want you to go preach in Canada, or that I want you to go to Europe for a year or two, but they don't because they have attachments to family, or they have, they don't really want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see that? Do you see that as like an offense? And do the spiritual masters see that as
Right.
like how?
You see, more experienced spiritual masters will understand that it's not their role to direct their disciples' lives. In some situations that might not apply, but in general, and especially in the more developed parts of the world. See, Prabhupada wanted his disciples to be independent and thoughtful, and he trained his managers to give challenges to the devotees that would make them inspired and not feel oppressed. See, so if we get a request, see, we might get advice or encouragement. How would you feel about going to Europe to preach? And say the guru has that inspiration. Maybe this person could preach. How would you feel about it? See? But to give a direct order is very risky, because then if the disciple does not take the order, then it's an offense. It's like going in a china shop, that expression, you break it, you buy it. So you give someone an order, they don't follow it, then it's bad for their spiritual lives. So therefore be a little discreet about giving orders. This is, in our ISKCON Sangha, this is a requirement to learn these kind of nuances. You know, in Vrindavan, my friend Dina Bandhu, he says, yeah, you go to the other ashrams and there's one guru, and it's very easy to get things done. You just go and ask the guru, yes, you do this. But in ISKCON, you have to know 35 GBCs and their friends. So, yes, our Sangha is run by a committee. That was Prabhupada's order. Why? Because committees are good in two ways. First of all, I'm sorry, there's one good thing and one bad thing about committees. The bad thing is that they cannot move fast. Everything goes grindingly slow. And the good thing is they don't change things too rapidly. So yes, in general, if we get an order from our spiritual master, we're supposed to take it. There's just one exception. Anyone know what is that?
Just guessing. Marriage?
Yes. Yes, the spiritual master orders you marry this person, you can say, no, Gurudev. Why is that? Do you know? What is the precedent?
Talk about giving orders, like spiritual master. Sometimes they give, sometimes they don't.
I'm sorry, about marriage. I'm just asking, do you know the precedent? Why? Yes, what? Huh?
The 4 Kumaras were ordered.
That was one, 4 Kumaras, which made their father, Brahma, so angry that he produced Shiva from his forehead. Yes. There's another example from the Mahabharata. Anyone remember? Yeah, Bhishma Dev, yes. He had arranged a marriage for a lady, and then the lady didn't want to marry that person, and so, but then the man she did want to marry, wouldn't accept her. So she went to Bhishma, who had kidnapped her for the other man, and said, you messed up my life, you have to marry me. And he said, I took a vow never to marry. And so she went to his guru, Parasaram, not a lightweight guru. And she told him the story, and Parasaram was sympathetic, and he went to Bhishma and said, you have to marry this girl. Direct order from his guru. He said, no, I took this vow, I can't. So this, in a way, was kind of Bhishma's shortcoming, that he'd keep his vow. I mean, that was a great thing. At the same time, he would keep it sometimes in the face of higher principles. Like when Draupadi was being assaulted and insulted in the assembly, Bhishma had to sit there because he had taken a vow, whoever's on the throne in Hastinapur, I will follow them. So Bhishma refused, and then Parasaram spent 18 days trying to convince him on the battlefield. They fought, and then they fought to a draw. And finally, Parasaram went to Amba, the lady, and said, I can't do it. I tried. So that's the history. That order can be refused. But other orders we're supposed to take.
So then, if you are creating an offense, do you think that impacts the rest of your Krishna conscious journey?
What often happens, if we get an order and don't carry it out, then our devotional service kind of stagnates. For example, in Prabhupada's godbrothers were given this general instruction to cooperate, form a GBC, but after his departure they tried to appoint an acharya, and everything fell apart. So if we do get a direct order and don't follow it, it is risky. It's also, though, appropriate if we get an order from our guru and we're not sure we can do it, it's appropriate to question, or at least to express, look, I'm not sure I can do this, or I'm not sure this is right for me in this situation. There's nothing wrong with bringing that. And then we can get further clarification to be sure. And if the spiritual master hears a disciple has some reservation, then very likely they're going to say, then that's all right. But you see my point, if we get a direct order, that's a heavy thing. One time Prabhupada had a disciple who wanted to divorce his wife and marry another woman. And it was a very unsavory thing. This is, of course, a disciple. He had formerly been a leader in the Sangha as a temple president. Now he was outside as a business person. But he'd asked Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada said, yes. And the devotees were quite surprised that he sanctioned that. And they said, why? And he said, because if I told him not to, he'd do it anyway, and that would be an offense. So it's very, very wise to. This is why so many people are afraid to be gurus, because then they got all this heavy responsibility. If you just understand it's not that big a deal, if you're giving somebody siksha, then to give them diksha, and just understand the limits of your authority. You're there to help them in their spiritual lives, not to manage and micromanage every move they make. Okay. Okay, Ishan, you tell me when to stop, Monil, okay?
We can take one last.
One last question, okay.
Prabhu, there's always this kind of mental block that, at every step I take, I'm committing some sort of offenses. Like I'm stepping on some sort of microorganism that's walking around.
Yes.
And that offense, when I go to Yamaraj, then he's going to remove that offense out and something's going to go wrong. So then this mindset comes in, especially if you're in the stage of anartha-nivritti, like where you're trying to find your anarthas, like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and that creates a mental block. So how do I get rid of that mental block?
This sounds
I'm constantly thinking about the offenses, but I'm also, because then I don't get like path to go ahead, and again, it just stops my Krishna consciousness and just taking too much tension.
This sounds like OCD. Right? Offense compulsive disorder. What we're really talking about is self-consciousness versus Krishna consciousness. In this case, it's good to know that verse, apichet sudaracharo. My intention is to serve Krishna, and if in the course of trying to serve Krishna I make some mistake, I trust that Krishna will know Bhavagrahi Janardana. He'll know my heart. He'll know my intention. And even if I made a mistake, my intent was to please him and serve. Right? And that trust in Krishna lifts us above the self-absorption. Oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? There is a great conqueror, Alexander the Great, who was an amazing story. He rose from a very obscure position and conquered the biggest empire in the world at the time, the Persian Empire. So it was said when he entered Central Asia, there was a famous Gordian knot. This knot was so complex that no one could untie it. And so it was said that whoever can untie this Gordian knot will conquer all of Central Asia. So they brought Alexander to the knot, and he looked at it, he pulled out his sword and cut it. And then he went on to conquer. So this is the point, that if we're mired down with the rules and regulations, then we have to take out the sword and just kind of cut through that. What am I trying to do for Krishna? And if in the course of trying to do something for Krishna, I do this wrong, or I don't purify my hand here, or if I... That's why at the end of every yajna there's this mantra. Anyone know this mantra? Say it, I really should memorize this one. Go ahead. In translation.
Whatever I perform, whatever I did, if I made any mistakes, please forgive me.
Yes. See. So we just go on. Very good. We go on with our service. Okay. With the understanding that, yes, we're very likely we're going to make mistakes. But let us get the job done. It just remind me of another story, and I'll end with this. So there was a postman in India who came to the door of the temple, knocked on the door. He said, I have a special delivery for A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And the devotee who answered the door said, okay, fine, I can take it for him. He said, no, I have to give this. He has to personally receive this. And he went upstairs, and then Prabhupada's secretary came down. He said, hi, I'm the personal secretary for A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. I can take this. The postman said, I'm sorry. I cannot deliver to anyone but him. And so he was so adamant that finally they took him upstairs, and he gave the letter to Prabhupada, and then he walked out and said, I have seen Swamiji. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.